This week on A to Z Running, in a world constantly battering us with new ideas, new technologies, new workouts, training approaches, and everything else, it becomes that much more important for us to seriously consider what things we need to stop. In this final episode of Rules to Realize Your Dreams, we share the last 3 rules. Stop taking shortcuts, stop compromising, and stop negativity.
Welcome back, everyone, to A to Z Running, where we help runners thrive with information, inspiration, and coaching services. I'm Andy.
And I'm Zach. And head to AtoZrunning.com to learn more about what we do. Follow our content on YouTube, Spotify, or wherever you're listening and watching podcasts these days. We upload audio and video, so you could watch us. I'm not quite sure why you'd want to, because if you don't watch us, then you don't have to see us, which is a positive in my book. Quick fact. The combined time separating first and second place in the World Championships men's marathon, 10,000 meter, and 1,500 meter finals, so all 3 of those, the combined time separating first and second place was 11 hundredths of a second.
That's so close.
Right?
For one event, it would be close.
Yeah, but we're talking about a marathon.
I know. That's what I'm saying.
A 10,000. So that's going to be exciting. We've got a lot to tell you about the World Championships. It's really incredible stuff. But we'll get to that in a little bit. We've also got a great AI trivia segment because Andy has to pay the penalty of losing. And so you're going to see what her penalty is today. And you got to make sure you get to the end of the episode because that's when we do the AI trivia segment itself. And then we're going to have a little more fun with the trivia as well. Shout out to Kathy, by the way, who is currently tied with the 2 of us in the current round.
Hey, Kathy. I love
Kathy, the listener who has been playing along more than anyone that I'm aware of. We scored each 2 points in the last episode, and this is the start of a new round, so now our total is up to 2, and Kathy also scored 2 points in that round. What should we do, Andy, if a listener beats us to 10? What should we do?
We'll come up with it. We're going to brainstorm.
We're going to do something for you. So Kathy has 2 points. If you can beat Kathy to 10, you might be able to beat us to 10 because I think Kathy's got a good chance of doing so.
I think so.
All right. Well, that's exciting stuff. And other exciting things include some of the running stuff that's been going on lately in the Andy and Zach household. And so, it's things like fall is one of our favorite times of year for training because the weather starts to get a little bit cooler, at least where we live. It's not oppressively hot, although I still like it to be hot personally. But when the humidity is stripped out of that heat, it's like gold. I was noticing running the other day. It was 80 degrees and dry, and I felt like that was the best possible running conditions I've ever been in.
Wow.
Like, it was just phenomenal.
Well, maybe Arizona will be good for you.
Yeah, but by then I'm going to be used
cooler.
to cold again. I'm not going to be heat adapted anymore, so I really hope it's not hot in Arizona.
It won't be that hot.
Shouldn't be.
Not in the morning.
You never know. So we like running in the fall.
Yeah. I had a fabulous run this morning, and I was able to see our runner Craig on the run. I didn't tell you that yet.
You didn't.
Yeah. So it was great to see a bunch of runners out and doing their thing. Fall is really a wonderful time of year in Michigan, USA to get out and run. I started early with a friend, and so saw the sunrise and the changing colors. They're early this year. So everything led into it being quite the fabulous long run. And I especially savor it because I haven't gotten to do long runs for a couple years. And so now I'm really able to dig into these long runs, not meaning I'm working. I'm not like going hard, but I'm able to
as hard as
enjoy it. I guess when I say savor, I'm eating it up. I'm gobbling it up. I'm enjoying it to the fullest because it truly is a gift to be able to get out there and move, especially when it's so beautiful.
Yeah. And so, grateful such as we are in the moments when we can be, that we can be healthy right now and running and training.
Yeah.
Not necessarily, as Andy has said, this isn't her healthiest training moment in her life, but she's...
Well, I'm healthy right now,
healthy.
but I'm just building. It's been a while, so I've been taking the step-by-step approach, which works out really good.
It does. It does at that. So what's next on the docket? You are the next one of the two of us to be competing.
Yeah. In October at the Grand Rapids Marathon event, I am doing the half marathon with Drew Lindman and Janelle Thorne. Janelle Thorne's my good friend, and we've mentioned her on the podcast before, but look up Janelle's race for more of her story. But she's currently in a wheelchair, and so we are going to be pushing Janelle, Drew, and I in order to do this event together and cross the finish line together.
As a team.
As a team.
Then.
Yeah.
Excellent. Yeah, and shout out to Drew, who's, depending on when you're listening to this, is like right in the middle of running a race in the very near future. All right, so we've got exciting things. And I don't have any races on my schedule between now and December 21st, the big one, which is the Marathon Project down south of Phoenix. But there will be some. There will be some. But they will be surprises. Mm-hmm. Why would I tell you?
You don't even know. You're like, I'm going to sign up last second.
I don't actually know. But these are fun times.
Yeah.
And a shout out to Q, my college and post-college coach, who is we're collaborating right now on the training and some of the things that we're doing this fall.
I didn't know that.
Oh,
Neat.
yeah.
That's great.
You did. All right. Well, before we get to any more running-related news, we've got to talk about the things that you need to stop doing. These are the rules for realizing your dreams. Step 1. Be patient, consistent, and balanced. And that's step 2. Get help, vision, and knowledge. And step 3. Stop shortcuts, compromise, and negativity. Do those things and you will realize all of your dreams.
That's a huge claim.
Or not.
Or not.
Because there's other things too.
It depends on what your dreams are, actually.
In fact, but here's the thing, though. This is how self-help kinds of principles, where we can go wrong if we take them as like the whole story. But this is, as we have contemplated the stuff that makes the biggest difference for us long term in our endeavors, and certainly we're thinking about running specifically, but these things are generalized on purpose. These are not running specific ideas. But when we think about that, these are the kinds of things that have risen to the fore. And so in the last several episodes, we've been talking about those things and trying to unpack it a little bit with you. And maybe we'll write a book about them even someday. Mm-hmm. But what we're trying to do right now is we're trying to help establish some of these kinds of base principles that we should be contemplating as people to try to better ourselves. And again, it's not an exhaustive list. These are not the only things that are important in life, obviously. But what we do when the best way I can describe this is we tend to think best within frameworks as like thinking creatures. And so we apply a framework to the way we're thinking about things, and it allows us to organize our otherwise chaotic thought. And so this is one of those kinds of frameworks that we think is helpful to apply. Mm-hmm. There's certain things we need to be, certain things we need to acquire, and certain things we need to put off and stop.
And I realize, too, in this culture of overstimulation, lots of information, as we've discussed, that does produce chaos. And I think many of us are craving to have some amount of clarity in what things are important and what things can really truly help us grow, and not produce in us that angst that's like, I don't really know what direction I'm going. I just know I need to move. So hopefully, I know for me and many of you, this is helpful to just really reduce the noise and help us channel our energy. We like to use that phrase, and our thoughts and our frameworks.
Right on. So if you missed some of those previous episodes, this one's going to sound like negative, and even though the last item on the list is to stop being negative, we'll talk about that. But the richest component of this framework that we're trying to establish is the first three elements. We need to be patient, consistent, and balanced. And those establish the foundation for the other things that we try to do as individuals, as runners in particular. And so if you've missed those episodes, go back and listen to those, certainly. Now, for the sake of rounding out the framework, we do need to address the question of what things are getting in our way that we need to stop doing. And so when we talk about the principle here, we're talking about like these are things that we're actually doing that are harming ourselves. And so why we should not do that. It's like it's harming us in the sense of delaying our ultimate goals or preventing our goals. Remember, this is a framework for realizing your dreams, or in other words, achieving your goals. We just didn't want to use the word achieving goals in our framework because that's used a lot.
But and we've used it. We have an episode called something about achieving your goals.
Well, we have plenty of them. The principle here is there are things that we do that get in our own ways and undermine our own efforts. Mm-hmm. And so we should not do them. And these are a few, and not the entire list either. And you all know, if you've been listening to AtoZrunning for more than 10 seconds, that Zach does have a penchant for cynicism. And I do need to combat that. It gets in my way in many things in life. But this is not a cynical approach. This is a thought out, deliberate consideration of some of the things that are the most destructive to us. So let's share them with you. We've already shared them, but let's dive into them. The first is shortcuts. When we say shortcuts, we mean essentially two things. One is like a specific action. The other is a kind of mindset. And so the action we're trying to stop doing is the quick solutions, easy way out type of stuff. The thing where it's like, I could do the thing the way I should, or I could do this other thing, and that will be cheaper, more convenient, and won't be quite as much effort for me. And that sounds nice. And so I want to do that. That's a shortcut in some sense. And then there's the mindset piece. This is really the key as far as what is most destructive here. The mindset piece is the idea that I'm trying to do as little as possible to get the desired results. When that is my mindset, which can be often associated with this ongoing like optimize your life kind of thing that our society does. When that is the mindset that's driving my decision making, I am likely to make a lot of poor decisions because the do as little as possible is almost likely to never give me as much of the desired results because the doing is the thing.
Can I give the contrast example of that?
Yeah.
Because there's the other shortcut that a lot of runners do, which is I want to full steam ahead, which it is a shortcut. So instead of like doing as little work as possible, it's doing too much work in order to get to a point faster than what is healthy and also what will get us our best results. So not having the patience. So
which
that
is why
also,
we establish patience.
Right.
As a
but that is a different kind of shortcut that many runners are tempted to take. Oh, I have a 5K I saw and I have 3 weeks to prepare. Well, that's just not enough time to prepare. Mm-hmm. So then going hard in that 3 weeks and hoping that it will produce a great result.
Yeah, like you can't, in terms of physiology, you can't make something happen faster or sooner than it can happen. And I know there's all the chemists out there are trying to find hacks for like, you can make your body recover faster if you take this supplement. You can make your body perform a little bit beyond its normal potential if you add this thing into your drink mix. And it may or may not be shady. Who knows? I know that those things exist, but the principle still applies. Like your physiology has a kind of linear progressive potential, and it doesn't go beyond that fundamentally. And so then when I look at a goal and I say this is something that I want to achieve, if I am unrealistic in terms of the timeline and what I'm hoping to achieve within that timeline, doing more training isn't going to make me get my goal better.
It's not a good shortcut.
More training than my body can physiologically sustain. So the clearest example of this, and it happens in every third conversation we have with runners, not necessarily our own runners, but just runners in general, is like I guess there's two sides of it. The one is I need to be running race pace for longer distances. And it's like, well, okay, but can your body handle that right now? Like running race pace 2 months before the race doesn't make a ton of sense in terms of like a physiological adaptation contribution. I know it could make sense in terms of neuromuscular adaptations, but that doesn't make a ton of sense because if my fitness is supposed to be building for the next 2 months, race pace right now doesn't mean the same thing as race pace in 2 months. So that's another layer. We've talked about that at length.
And what is race pace? You don't know until you get to the day of the race.
Well, that's kind of the way you should. Yeah. And then the other side of it is the classic, the long run mindset, where it's like my long run needs to be longer because I'm running a long race. And the first question we should be asking ourselves in response to that desire is, how's my body handling the current volume of long runs? Like, if I'm doing a long run and it is significantly taxing for me to complete the run at a mildly easy effort, if not, very easy effort, then doing more that day would have been a bad idea. And so then I get to a point where I say, for the last few weeks, it has been like easy breezy for me to run the full length of my run that was planned, like just a piece of cake. My body feels like it hasn't hardly done anything. Well, okay, you could potentially look at extending that length a little bit if that's the nature of your situation. So what we're trying to establish is there's pitfalls that we tend to fall into, and there's many of them. Those are a couple examples. But what it is that tends to inspire these sometimes poorer decisions is that mindset of, well, this thing makes me feel better about what I'm doing, and so I'm going to choose that, even if that's not necessarily the patient path. And I think it really comes from a basic instinct. I don't think this is something that people are doing inherently wrong. I think all of us are feeling this way about things. And it's essentially one of three areas that I would say. One is convenience. Like, the more convenient thing is always going to appear more appealing to us, regardless of what the it is. I think we're kind of hardwired into that. And so this is going to save me time. This is easier. The alternative is very arduous. The convenient thing is always going to be more appealing. And then cost, similarly, in terms of time or energy or money, the thing that costs less is going to be more appealing. And we've said this before. Our amount of energy available is finite. We only have so much, just like our amount of money available is finite. Well, I guess there's possibly some people listening to this that basically have infinite money, but we don't. And chances are you don't either. So what it means for us then is it is good to find ways to save money, energy, and time. That is a good thing. But oftentimes, the way we're saving things like energy and time are detrimental to our ultimate goal that we're trying to get at. And then the final layer we were just discussing, but immediate gratification. We've been talking about that plenty on this series. But the principal goal of this feels good, and it feels better to do this right now than this other thing, even if the other thing might be what I need more. So instead of taking shortcuts, keep your vision, your focus on that long-term goal in mind, and the small challenges are going to be worth it today if they mean I can succeed later. If we lose sight of the big picture, it's harder to make the better choices right now. How about compromise then? These two areas are in fact probably very, very similar and overlap in many ways, but we have them listed separately because there's a very distinctive difference. The principle of compromise as a negative thing for us is more about the balance of compromise, because the best way to say it is life is not possible without compromise to some degree. Like, I can't have everything optimal and perfect all the time in every way. And I guess you might occasionally have a great season of life where things just can be exactly what you want them to be. But usually they can't. And we were talking about this recently when we were talking about nutrition and some of the work, particularly around Casey Means' book and some of the others that have written on the same topic, that we as a society have essentially sacrificed our best choices for nutrition and health on the altar of convenience and cost. And yet the alternative mindset that says, eat only the cleanest food period, and only ever eat the good things that our body needs all the time in exactly the right quantities, that's probably not practical. Certainly is not practical, but probably not possible for anyone. Maybe some people. Again, if you have unlimited money, I guess maybe you can find a way. And so we have to draw a line somewhere. Andy and I have talked about this. We have found some of the compromises that we're willing to make. Like, we do occasionally eat sugar, even though sugar in a raw form is not particularly good for us. We do still occasionally eat it. And when friends brought some delectable donuts to a thing not terribly long ago, I was willing to eat some. It's the first time I'd had a donut in a long time. And yet, I won't go around eating donuts every day either. Or as a matter of fact, really hardly at all. But you can see there's going to have to be a line somewhere. And so when we say quit compromise, when we say stop compromise, we mean find that line and then keep it deliberately. I think that's the key piece here is self-awareness, that where am I making compromises? Don't let it happen accidentally, just incidentally, but instead be aware of the line where I want to draw it. And then when I have to compromise, make that choice deliberately. So I ate a donut at that thing at that time. And then I tell myself, now that definitely means that I should significantly be more aware of the amount of sugar I'm eating for the rest of that day. Like, I'm not going to eat 3 sugary treats in that one day just because I had the one. Like, that's a poor example, but
I have an example.
Give me a better example.
So I have to hold the line and not compromise of doing like pre-run stuff. I have to hold that line. I can't compromise on that because I have, and it's bitten me throughout my injury journey the last several years. So I have to draw that deliberately, and I have. So there's some things that I just have to do before every run, even if it's super tight.
Mm-hmm. Yes, that's a great example. So here's the key, I think. The key challenge to compromise is that we are far more likely to compromise in the midst of stressful situations or situations where there's a high cognitive load. And so what happens is, and this is why I say this is a very natural thing, what happens is when we're in a context where high stress, high cognitive load, any of those kinds of things, even high physiological stress, by the way, any kind of stress, then compromise actually presents a window of relief. Like, I am really struggling here. To compromise may relieve some of that struggle. And that's why I say then now the deliberate part needs to come into play, because that's always going to be a more appealing and easier choice to make. And so if I'm going to make that choice, I need to make sure I'm doing so with a deliberate mind. So here's my example then, a running example. You've got your week laid out before you. You know when you're planning to run. And then the run that you're planning to do after work that day on Tuesday or Wednesday, it turns out that something else is going on with a kid or with a spouse or with work. And so you end up having to do other things that were unplanned. And now it's getting a little bit later. And I could still go for the run, but it's probably important for me to help with dinner preparations, or I have this other thing that I need to do too. Or maybe it gets to the point where it's now later at night and it's like I could go for a run now, finally, when it's after dinner and everyone's kind of settled down. I could do my run now, but I need to do my run tomorrow first thing in the morning. And that's not great physiologically. It's not terribly productive to do that when your body is not already used to doing that. And so that would be a potential situation where I might say, I'm going to have to cut this run short and just do a very easy jog, a quick light jog when I can fit it in, or take that day off. I need to rest that day. But then what happens is now I have to be even more careful for the rest of the week to not end up in that same situation. And so I need to, the deliberateness here says I had to make this compromise for the betterment of my family, my work, or whatever. So I need to make sure I don't find myself in that situation accidentally in the near future again, because then it becomes a day off here and there, unplanned, no problem. It's not going to affect your ultimate goals. But a day off followed by another day off, or having to cut out a couple of my longer runs to short runs for a few days in a row, that starts to become less productive for my physiology. So that's what we mean when we say we need to stop. compromise.
To continue on with my example, just another facet of it. So the deliberate part. So let's say I am short on time and I have drawn that deliberate line with my pre-run, then I have to make a compromise knowing that that is my line. I shorten my run because I know my priorities. So partly it's knowing what is important for you and what is essential. And then from there, you can make better choices. So I just really like that this is about having there be a deliberate line that we're making.
Yeah, and I should note, I meant to say this earlier, that stress can be relieved by compromise in the moment. It can create a little bit of space for you, a little bit of relief. However, pattern of compromise produces a kind of like lack of self-fulfillment. Like what ends up happening is when I fall into a pattern of compromise, I start to feel like I'm failing. I'm letting myself down. Like I'm not doing the thing that I know I should be doing, but I'm now stuck in this pattern. And so like repeated compromise is just as detrimental as absolutely no compromise, being too rigid. And then, as the saying goes, an uncompromising person is more likely to break than bend. And that's not great either. So then finally, the last thing that we need to stop is negativity. So we're telling you negatively, in the negative,
in negative
don't
languages.
be negative. Isn't that always, that's the funny phrase. Don't be negative. Well, you're being negative about being negative.
Yeah.
Well, that's not the point. You get it. You get it.
You know what we mean.
But here's the problem. Negativity as an internal mechanism is highly unproductive. And we've looked at a couple of studies for the sake of this particular example, but we see it constantly in research and anecdotally. Internal negativity, is going to hamper performance. It's going to produce more negativity. So negativity tends to spiral. And also it's going to affect the people around me. And so it can actually spread negativity outside myself when I am negative internally. It's not great. So here's a study from 2022 that negative self-talk produces anxiety, and anxiety impedes performance. And so I don't want more anxiety, but if I tell myself negative things, I tend to feel more anxiety. Stressful situations are also correlated with negative self-talk. So physiological stress, like running hard, that actually, when I'm suffering, it's harder to be positive. Who would have guessed? Who would have guessed?
And that's why this is a really important spinning it for the positive.
Yeah.
If you are able to take those thoughts captive and you are able to reframe things in a more productive way, you will have more opportunity to realize your dreams. It is true, 1,000%, because not only does it help you in your day-to-day, but in your enjoyment of the sport. And then, of course, if you are practicing this, if this is something that you are doing intentionally, you're going to have amazing outcome when it comes to your marathon, your half marathon, your 10K, whatever it is that you're running, because you've practiced this. Because negativity will come. Circumstances are hard. We choose hard as runners. We're choosing hard. So if we can wrap our head around all of those things and prepare for it daily, this will be a good one.
So what about the other side? Because the question is often raised, well, haven't we heard that fear is a powerful motivator and people can actually yell someone into better performance in the moment? It is possible. In fact, that actually works internally as well. Studies have shown that negative self-talk can refocus us and we can end up back on track in terms of performance. However, there are many caveats to that. And one of them that's really interesting in a 2021 study that I was stumbling upon here, one of them explicitly notes that negative self-talk was showing higher performance potential than positive self-talk in a number of cases. But they kept saying, but there was a definite association between the negative self-talk and a kind of self-perception where it was like, I'm perceiving that as a challenge that I need to overcome, or I'm perceiving that as a focusing, a reorienting, don't quit now. Stop, stop, getting down on yourself and buck up and go. Like things like that, right? Where it's not a positive self-talk, but at the same time, the nature of the thing is, I'm perceiving it, at least in my own mind, as a kind of motivation or a kind of reorienting of my focus. What we seem to see consistently is that patterns of negative self-talk, and especially when they are not being leveraged or perceived in that way, are never positive. So it kind of depends. There's some interesting caveats.
We read a book, I think it was a Steve Magnus book, which discussed the difference between fear motivation and alternatively like an intrinsic motivation. And they found that there is massive burnout with fear motivation, and it's not good for your health to continually be motivated by fear. So and then there alternatively as well, like the longevity that people have, if they have more positive self-talk, they're able to achieve higher at a slower rate, but
potentially, or even just better in every metric. But what it amounts to is negative self-talk is almost always an automatic response in a stressful situation. And there's a number of ways we can certainly research that explicitly. But what happens is I enter into a moment of challenge or difficulty or stress, and the negative self-talk is just spontaneous, or it's automatic. It just is a reaction to that, not necessarily something I'm consciously doing. And when you can take someone in that situation and train them to have an automatic positive response, an internal positive response, that's where you see significant improvements in these types of things. It's one thing when you're telling yourself something to motivate yourself, whether it's positive or negative. It's another thing when you're just reacting in your thinking to a stressful situation. When you can take that automatic reaction and you can condition it to be positive, to be encouraging, self and internally encouraging. What ends up happening then is we can produce the kind of like, you can combat things like the anxiety rise, the cortisol release, some of that kind of stuff that's just going to happen. So yes, you're still experiencing the stress from an external standpoint, but you're not internally increasing it by your reaction.
I remember we also had read research that your body preemptively will do physical things. So like releasing different kinds of hormones, or it will even shut you down if you are thinking about how much it will hurt at a certain mile marker, let's say. Like, oh, I'm at 15, but I'm really afraid I'm going to feel terrible at 18. And you start talking to yourself this way, your body does this thing where it starts protecting itself from that danger that you're talking about in your head. And so that's another drawback of having negative thinking, is that your body and your mind are connected. Surprise! So it's very possible that when you're doing that anticipatory worry and focusing on the negative, that your body will react in kind.
Yeah, I mean, it's as simple as the kind of thinking that you're doing in your head produces a physiological response. This is the case in many different kinds of situations and many different types of thought and thought processes. So what we need to do then, and the instead here, instead of negativity, we need to anticipate difficult situations. As Andy said, we know that it's going to hurt. I mean, if you're running a marathon, it's not going to be easy, people. Come on. I guess it could be if you're running it easy enough. But if you're running a marathon, if you're pushing yourself to your physical limits in any sense, it's going to be difficult. If you are also involved in lots of things, like you have family work and other things and such, you're going to experience cognitive stress. You're going to experience emotional stress. Like, these things are guaranteed. And so now what we have to do is we have to plan our responses. Like, yes. How do I want to respond to that thing when it happens? When my wife gets upset with me for something that I tend to do far too often, and I know that there's going to be a moment where I did that thing and she's upset. I should anticipate that better and plan how I am going to talk to myself in here and how I'm going to then react externally. Now, this is actually fairly simple and straightforward because we are going to experience these things on a regular basis. And so you have a chance to just kind of rehearse and practice constantly. And don't expect like the next time that this thing happens, now I'm going to be like totally positive and I'm going to respond in the exact best possible way. But instead, give myself something to try.
And I should kind of differentiate because it is nuanced. If I to anticipate something, anticipate the hard, anticipate the reality of your race or of the hard thing you're doing, that's different than having negative chanting early on that does that thing physiologically. Because what you do when you're anticipating something that you've prepared for, which you prepared for your racing, you can frame it in such a way, okay, if I start feeling this way, I know that I have the strength to continue, or I didn't come up with this beforehand, so I'm kind of drawing a blank of what I should say exactly. But you gather what I'm saying, right? So I know that things will get hard, but I'm really tough. I've prepared for this. I have the musculoskeletal strength. I have a strong aerobic system. I'm here for this. I chose to be here. I'm showing up, and telling yourself those kinds of things rather than like, oh, I'm so afraid I'm going to shut down.
And the final, perhaps a kind of summarizing statement for this framework of thinking, not just the negativity, not just the things to quit, but all of it, is whether it's positive, whether it's negative, whether it's a good habit we have or a bad habit we have, a good thing we're doing or a bad thing we're doing, it's contagious. And so the good positives that we pursue are likely to spread to the people around us, especially the people closest to us. And the negative things that we are doing are likely to spread to the people around us. And so as we go, we can also bring each other along. We can lift each other up. So while these are the 9 rules to realizing your dreams, there are also the 9 rules to helping the people around you realize theirs.
Yeah.
And that might be probably a good way for us to stop our series on the topic. We have tried to bring to you some kind of thinking that we think allow for a better chance at success in the things that you're pursuing. And I'm sure you have a list that has some things ours doesn't, and that's wonderful. Keep that on your list. But maybe there's some things here that you haven't necessarily thought of in a while, and it could be helpful to you too. With that, we're now ready to move on to talking about the world of running. First up, we've got some updates from the AtoZrunners, the group that we are supporting, and individuals, I should say. It's not necessarily a group, except for that
we are a group, though.
Everyone is part of it.
We like each other.
Lots of racing going on lately, and it's a ton of fun. Kate ran the DC half.
Oh, I want to say something about that.
I know. I was going to say you should say.
It's her fastest half since she was 21 years old.
Which doesn't mean much because she's only 22 years old, but I'm kidding. You're not supposed to give away people's age, and you're supposed to say it's her fastest half in over 20 years. Which actually may not be true because I don't know exactly how old she is. So there you go, Kate. We're not giving it away.
Kate ran fast. That's what you want to know.
I think the key takeaway is it's the fastest she's run since she was her absolute fastest.
Yeah.
And that is awesome. Yeah. Well done.
Well done, Kate. Bridge
Run, 10-mile race. This is a big local affair in the West Michigan area, and we happen to have a lot of people who participated, and it's always a lot of fun. Bummer ourselves that we could not be there this time around.
Very much.
Maybe next year. The Bridge Run 10-mile featured CJ, who was third in his age group, Ethan, Joe, Mary, all competing, Claire, who was second in her age group, and Dan, who was third in his age group, and Kyle and Andrew, all participating, and Lorenda, who ran a personal best time.
Way to go, Lorenda.
Nicely done. That's a lot of fun. We always like that one. Really, really cool. 10 miles is the best race distance.
You think so?
It is.
Okay.
No, it's objective. I don't think so. It just is.
10's the perfect
10
number.
miles is the best race distance. Good stuff. And then, most recently, Aaron ran the Margie 100 plus miles. It's 100 and something is basically the way these races work. And she finished second overall.
Yep.
Nicely done, Erin.
So second overall female and sixth overall human being across the finish line.
Yes.
Amazing,
Yeah.
Erin.
But those aliens who finished ahead of her. So well done, everybody. And there were some other things going on in the mix here. We'll just have to update you on some more stuff next time you hear from us. Really fun. Now, we want to share with you the first chunk of the World Championships.
Oh, it's been a blast. And it's
love
been
it.
like so surprising. And we've been trying to watch all the heats of everything too. And there's been so much drama in the heats. It's been worth the full viewing.
We're going to try to give you some of that drama, even though we're really just reporting on the results of the finals in each event. We're going to share with you some of the drama from the heats too.
Yeah.
So what we're going to do today is the first few events, and then the next time you hear from us, we'll wrap it up with the 5,000 and the 800, which are on the last days of competition. Mm-hmm. So then you get a little bit of protracted World Championships, which is the way it should be. It ought to be just a year-long experience.
Track all day.
Quick note, background for you: the World Championships this year are held in Tokyo, which is, of course, the location of the not most recent but previous Olympic Games. Remember, Tokyo was the Olympics that got postponed and then had to be held in an empty stadium where there were no people.
Beautiful.
No spectators.
Facilities that were
right?
Not able to be enjoyed by the public.
So now we got a taste for the Olympic Tokyo Stadium when it was full. And what a crowd. The Japanese know how to love track and field.
Yeah.
I tell you what. They
sure do.
They were awesome. Because it's still going on. And so there's that. However, Tokyo in September is not very cool. It's pretty hot, which we noticed the last time Tokyo in the Olympics. But it was actually probably even worse this time. And so that affected things. You know, you're going to get, when races, especially distance races, as we report on, when it's hot weather, athletes are much, much more cautious. They don't take as many risks early on. And
if they do, they suffer.
And a lot of people tend to pay the price for some of those decisions. So that's going to be an influence on things like why some of these races were so slow. But I tell you what, that men's steeplechase was the slowest thing I've ever seen. It was painful.
Zach's like, I could have hung with them.
No, not just that. I did the math. The men's steeplechase was slower than the women's for the first half.
Wow.
The women were running faster than the men in the first half of the race. And I'm not saying that because the women are like so much slower than the men, although they are. But in terms of percentage difference between performance, the point is that the men were running significantly slower than they needed to. And we're going to talk about it. Okay, let's start with the women's 10,000 meters. It was the first race in terms of finals. And it was not terribly dramatic. It kind of went, I think, for me, the way I would have guessed. I'll leave it at that. What's some of the breakdown?
Oh, yeah.
Ririka Hironaka of Japan pleased the home crowd. The first distance final, and she went to the front and led the race.
Hero is the hero.
Yep.
She was.
She was indeed. She gave the crowd what they wanted, led the race for 2 miles plus a little, and then the Kenyans struck. And things changed a bit.
Well, they got faster, for one.
Yes. So here's what ended up happening. It was Agnes Ngetic and Beatrice
No
Chebet.
surprise. No surprise.
No surprise. And they just like tag teamed for a while and just drove hard at that pace. And as we said earlier, in a hot day, 10,000 meters, there weren't very many people that wanted to go with them. So there weren't very many people that did. And it was a small group, but it was an elite crowd at that. You basically had 2 phases after they took the lead. You had the front and you had everyone else. And the front were about 6 women. Well, actually, I guess it was 7 at first. And that was some Kenyans, some Ethiopians, the Ugandan, who faded off kind of right away, and Nadia Battacletti of Italy. Do you remember that name?
Yeah, it was a name that surprised me from the Olympics.
In fact, it was. She was the shocker upset to take the silver medal in the women's 10,000 in the Olympics. And the reason why it was so shocking is because she almost beat Beatrice Chebet. She almost did.
Crazy.
So when this race is unfolding, and there were 7 women in the lead pack, and then there were 6, and then there were 5, and Nadia Battlecletti was one of those 5, we were like, she might do it again. She might do it. Actually, she might even win this time.
Well, part of it was that she kind of was staying a little bit more steady than some of the other athletes who are kind of ping-ponging back and forth and working as a team with their own country women.
Yeah.
I think that was part of it. They were changing lead and stuff, but she was just hanging out. I mean, hanging out, going quick.
And with an elite group at that. We're talking about 5 of some of the most accomplished women on the planet in distance running. Beatrice Chebet, who currently holds the world record in the 10,000 and the 5,000 and the road 5,000 and has won multiple medals and everything. Agnes Nigetic, who holds the world record in the road 10,000 and has just been on a tear this season. I think she's world number 4 in the women's 5,000. I cannot remember if she's faster than Faith Kipyegon. And then you have Gudaf Sige, world number 2 all-time in the 5,000, as well as world number 2 in the 1,500, and she's got all the accolades, right? You've got Ejgayehu Taye of Ethiopia, who has not run quite as fast as these women, but
is always there and winning races
like
often.
World top 10 stuff.
Yeah.
So that's the crowd we're talking about here, and there were 5 of them. And then Taye was struggling. And remember, it's the heat. This pace is not so fast that these women can't do it, but it's hot. And so then Taye fades off, and now you've got Nigetic, Chebet, Sige, and Battlecletti. Not only 4 incredibly accomplished athletes, but all 4 of them amazing kickers as well. And with 400 meters to go, they were in lockstep, and it was so exciting.
Yeah, and we're wondering, okay, the wind-up's happening.
Right.
What's going to happen?
What's going to happen? Gudaf Sige clearly wanted to try to take it a little bit early, but with Chebet, at this point, I think it's safe to say she is probably the greatest female distance runner kicker of all time. Mm-hmm. She
ran just as fast as Faith Kipyegon. Remember?
Yeah.
Her final close of the 5,000 was as fast as Faith Kipyegon's close of the 15.
You're talking about in the Olympics.
Yeah, in the Olympics.
Yep. Which is not terribly uncommon because the 1,500, you're moving at such a higher percent of maximum for longer that it is harder to that final lap to really drive it. And the 5,000, a lot of times you're able to. Anyway, so Chebet ends up winning it. It was the Battlecletti's coming, but Chebet is just too fast. Just can't do it. But then Battlecletti steals another silver medal. It's not a steal because she definitely deserved it. She is there. And she did so in an Italian record, 30:38, on an incredibly hot day when most of the world's classiest runners can't even hang.
I think what that tells us, it was obviously her PR, but to have that kind of gutsy performance, hanging with the best, she knows she's the best, but it could be more questionable as these other women have had way more results proving that they can hang, right?
Yeah.
So she's running the fastest she's ever run in her life on a hot, humid night.
Right, which is just incredible. That's so good. And then Gudaf Sige ends up taking the bronze medal, and I just have to wonder how frustrated she is since the rise of Kipyegon and Chebet. Sige has not been able to win anymore.
Against them. She does win when they're not there.
You're right. No, I'm not saying that. I'm saying the global medals. Mm-hmm. And the problem is Sige can do all of the events. She's one of the best milers of all time, and she's got one of the fastest 10,000 meters of all time. But since Kipyegon does the mile, and Chebet does the 5,000, 10,000, and Kipyegon also does the 5,000, Sige can't ever win anymore. It's got to be frustrating. I can't imagine. Well, let's talk about the marathon, because that was the next event up. In fact, the very next morning was the women's marathon. Good thing Sifan Hassan wasn't trying to double up both of those again.
Wow. Yeah.
The women's marathon was a riot.
It was.
It was so good. It was so good. So first you have the early drama. USA's Susanna Sullivan takes an early lead and then just keeps extending it. And the whole race, we're like, yeah, she's not gonna stay. But maybe. Like she
did
going.
This, if you'll remember, she did this, I believe it was at the last World Championships.
Not
where
the Olympics?
She took it out. I don't know.
Could have been. I don't recall
But
exactly.
I remember
but
she's
yes.
done this before.
So what's Susanna Sullivan doing? Well, she's running her own race.
Right.
She's just not racing the competition. She's doing her thing. And that means trying to not do this like ping pong event where they start slow and then they suddenly speed up. She doesn't want to mess with that. She just wants to run.
She wants to run her best possible performance, which is really smart, especially if you know, oh, these women are going to close like sub 15 minutes.
Right.
Like I would like to have a little space on that.
You also kind of roll the dice here because on a really hot day like it was, that is going to take its toll on Sullivan herself. But if she can trust in her body's capacity to endure the amount of exertion she's doing, the longer you stay ahead of people, the more carnage there's going to be behind you. People dropping out, people fading, things like that. And so it's an interesting tactic. Now, here's what happens. She goes out, and for the first 5K, everyone's clumped up together. And then USA's Jessica McLean goes with her for a bit as Sullivan starts to suddenly just kind of take off. And at 10K, Sullivan's already got a 9-second lead on the field. Okay, you ready for this, Andy? This is awesome. 10K, Sullivan's got a 9-second lead. At 15K, McLean's starting to drift back now to the group, and Sullivan's lead is 21 seconds. So after only 5K, she's extended it up to 21 seconds. At 20K, her lead is now 27 seconds, and the chase pack is already down to 18 women. So halfway into the race, Sullivan has a nearly 30-second lead, and there's not even 20 women still chasing anymore. What? Well, 5K later, at 25K, it's still 27 seconds on McLean, who had rallied a bit to try to kind of start moving up, and the pack hadn't gone with her. And Sullivan had 36 seconds on the field. So then, and by the way, at that point, the field is only 8 women. It had broken completely apart. So now Sullivan is only having to deal with a total of under 10 people to compete. And at this point, we're watching and we're like, oh, she might have a chance. She might have a chance at a medal here. It is possible because what is it going to take for them to chase her down, and how many people won't be able to handle it and will break off on the chase? And the answer was, that's exactly right, because by 30K, Sullivan no longer had the lead. So it was a crazy, 36 seconds over the course of 5K is how much faster the chasers ran than Sullivan. And she wasn't really slowing down, but they were speeding up incredibly. Well, who are the chasers? Ethiopia's Tigist Assefa and Kenya's Paris Jepchirchir, some of the most decorated marathoners of all time. No surprise that it was the two of them. But the thing is there wasn't anyone else. They were the chase pack because they had accelerated so much, they broke everyone off. So now Sullivan is primed with only 12K to go. There's not many people left who have a legit chance of catching her outside of the two who have surpassed her, right? It's crazy. Now we're starting to say, okay, this actually might have been a really good strategy. At 35K, with only 7K to go, Assefa and Jepchirchir were over 90 seconds ahead. They were flying, just storming down. No problem. They were obviously taking the first 2 medals at this point. But Sullivan was still holding 5th because there just weren't that many people left. Julia Paternin, by the way, remember that name, was right about 6th place. And there's going to be a story. And then with 400 meters to go, so we've got 7K left at that point, and with 400 to go, they enter the Olympic Stadium and finish on the track, which I just love it. I love it that they do that. As a runner, personally, I really enjoy those kinds of things, but also...
I don't know. Would you have to do a whole lap at the end?
Yeah, but with that crowd, you enter the track
that
and
would be
crowd.
worth it.
And
I
the
don't get
Japanese
crowds
love
like
marathons, so they were all over the course too,
Yeah.
but they enter the stadium side by side, Assefa and Jepchirchir, and it takes a sprint finish at the end of the marathon on a hot day, and it ends up being Jepchirchir over Assefa. Somehow puts 2 seconds on her in the last 200 meters. But what about bronze? Susanna Sullivan.
Who had it?
Does it pay off? Well, what ends up happening is unexpected, little known, Julia Paternin is storming down those last 7K. And she ends up coming into the stadium kind of just looking like she's just running a race. And you see her start to look around like, there's not a lot of people around here. There aren't very many runners. She looks up ahead and she finally starts rounding the corner where she can see the finish. And you can see confusion on her face. Literal, her eyebrows are furrowed and she's confused. And she looks up at the big screen. She looks ahead of her at who's finished. And she starts pointing
Well, I think it was actually because she didn't know she was supposed to end.
Like,
there.
is this the end? Am I actually done already? Because I could just keep going. Like, who knows, right? She's like, is this the end? And then you see a moment, and she's still running. She's still 100 meters from the finish. You see a moment on her face in the slow-mo of this is so good, where she sees that only 2 people have finished. And she just like instant emotion. Like she almost loses it before she's even crossed the finish line. You could just see it on her face. It was awesome. And then she's just shocked and she's like screaming because she won the bronze medal.
I learned that
she didn't even know it.
Yeah. I learned that she was like one of the last like qualifier times going into that race.
Yeah.
Like she was not expected to be top 10.
But yet she did it. And so this is why I say remember her name earlier, because what ended up happening was she was way back and the big chase is going on. She wasn't messing around with any of that. She was just doing her own thing. And then over the last 10K of the race, she's just moving up, chipping away at the number of people in front of her. The reason that she didn't realize she was in third is because a ton of women DQ'd or DNF'd in front of her in that last 10K. So she was in
dropped out, you mean? Yeah.
Right. DNF'd. They just stepped off the course. She was in like 25th place at one point. And no. She was in like 12th place at one point. And of those 11 people in front of her, like 5 of them did not finish the race.
Wow.
So she had no idea that she was in third place. That is so cool. What a story. And how about Sullivan?
Yeah, how about Sullivan? So she ended up finishing 4th place.
4th place.
Which is an incredible finish.
So close.
So close.
So Sullivan.
But also just really impressive, period. 4th place is so good.
Absolutely. Did the strategy work?
I think so.
It did because she ended up 4th and she was not far away from 3rd. And so, the strategy worked. It just didn't quite work enough.
And perhaps McLean's early adjustment also paid off for her with 8th place finish, because top 10 is nothing to snuff at.
Yeah. Jessica McLean, is that right?
Yes.
McLean? Yeah. So she ended up 8th. So 2 Americans in the top 10. That's amazing. Good stuff. All right, let's talk about the men's 10,000. We won't spend that much time on every event, but that was just such an exciting race. What a great race. The men's 10,000 was not. It was not exciting at all. As a matter of fact, there's nothing to say about the race until the last 2 laps.
Yeah.
Except that the Japanese men, Hironaka, they did their part up front and pleased the home crowd. So the 2 of them led for a fair bit, but they weren't trying to run fast. They were just in front.
It was like it was a national decision.
I think it was just, we're on home soil. We've got to give the crowd what they came for. Mm-hmm. And then with 2 laps to go, then the race started. So with a 10,000 meter race, when you don't actually have to run until the last 800, I don't know what you're doing. I don't know what to say about that. But it was just a giant clump of men with 2 laps to go. And then everyone started like shuffling around and trying to get into position. And there's just so much chaos that when the bell rang, the only people who were in a good position were the Ethiopians, because they had just stayed at the back all of that time and just slowly moved around that giant clump. The bell rings, and it's Kajelcha and Aragawi, I think, or Barega. I can't remember which one was right next to him. One of the other Ethiopians, and they just take off, and then the chase happens. And then Grant Fisher is stuck. He's stuck on the rail. He has nowhere to go. He can't get around. He can't chase. And the whole time we're like, Fisher, you got to get out. But he had no way to go. He didn't want to pull off a Cole Hawker, which we'll talk about later. And so it comes down to about 200 to go, and Fisher gets a little gap, and so he can get out. And we're thinking, okay, the chase is on. Kajelcha is leading the charge, 200 to go, rounding the bend, and the Americans just kind of fade. I don't know how else to say it except Nico Young, Grant Fisher, both of them are supposed to be phenomenal kickers, but not today. And so they fade. And Kajelcha is running a beeline for the finish. And then the shocker happens. France's Jimmy Gressier, out of nowhere. His last 100 must have been so fast, because he's just flying down the straight. Out of nowhere, snipes the victory from Kajelcha. Shocking. Just shocking. And what a finish, too. And then it was narrow. I can't remember what the extent of it is, like 700ths of a second. Crazy close. And right behind Kajelcha's Andreas Almgren of Sweden, who ends up finishing 3rd, out-kicking Kenya's Ishmael Kipkurui for the bronze medal,
That's
which is
crazy.
just amazing. These guys were moving. So what a finish. What a podium, too. Gressier, first French gold medal in the 10,000 ever, I think. If not ever, it's not been in the modern era.
I wasn't able to find his last 100.
No, okay. Not in a quick search. Well, that's all right.
Nope.
So there you have your podium. Incredible stuff. The 10,000 was exciting for 2 laps. That was the whole race. But it was an exciting finish. And then we get to the men's marathon the very next day, and the men's marathon was just as much fun as the women's marathon. It was crazy.
Yeah.
It was crazy, but for a different reason. So the women's marathon was an interesting, like, cat and mouse kind of game. The men's marathon was just like an attrition race. It was super duper hot again, so it wasn't crazy fast, but it also wasn't slow. And so then it just became who can hang on. And no one person was leading at all during the vast majority of the race. It was moving around. The Ugandans did their fair bit up front, that's for sure. But it was moving around quite a bit. At half, there were 39 men in the group. At 25K, there's only 29 men. At 30K, it's down to 23. You can just see the attrition, right? Clayton Young of the USA was one of those hanging on. So with 35K, or with 7K to go, there's only 16 men in the group. And over the next 5K, some surging finally starts to happen, and it drops down to 6. And none of them are the race favorites. Like 6 people that when you look at it, you're like, I would have never told you any of those people would win this race. And so now it's just like, what's going to happen next? Because none of them are going into this thinking they for sure have this in the bag. And so it just becomes a continual attrition. 3 men start to separate, but even then, they're not that far ahead, and there's only 3 of them with 400 meters to go. They enter the stadium, and they're all together, just like Jep Chirchir and Asefa in the women's race, all 3 together. And it's Germany's Amanal Petros who makes the surge on the back straight. It's like a track race. Like, it looks like a track race. They're coming down to the last lap. The bell rings, and now they're taking off, right? That's exactly what it looks like, except they just ran 26 miles before that. But Petros takes off, and then Italy's Awani is not able to hang, and is it Tanzania? Tanzania's Simbu is kind of chasing Petros, but he can't keep with him. Petros's move was big, and it was like, this guy did the big move. He's gonna earn the prize. And with 100 meters to go, Petros starts to tie up, and Simbu, who looks like he's out of it, suddenly has a moment of like, who knows what he's telling himself, right? But it's like, I think I might be able to beat him. And he turns it on with 100 meters to go and catches Petros on the line.
On the line.
They were given the same finishing time. He did not pass him. He caught him on the line, beat him in a lean in a marathon.
And we didn't know who the winner was. We had to wait in that suspended moment where they were checking the
Nobody
photo.
knew who the winner was. They had to go to the photo finish, the timing mechanisms, everything. And they end up awarding Simbu Tanzania's first gold medal in the Marathon World Championships. And the difference separating them was hundredths of a second. Hundredths.
Yeah.
I don't even know what to think about that. It was so cool. And so now you've got the men's 10,000 comes down to hundredths. The men's marathon comes down to hundredths. It's like, when are we going to... Everything's close. Everything's close. No one knows what's going to happen. So, and then the bronze medal went to, by the way, Italy's Awani, which I think is Italy's first medal for World Championships. I can't recall. Can't recall. And it might be Germany's too, by the way. I know what they said was in the top 6, none of those nations represented had ever won the World Champs Marathon. So it's going to be a new winner regardless. All right. Men's steeplechase. I already told you this was crazy slow. It was really unpleasant to watch for the first 7 laps, basically. And there's no other reason than that except for that the favorites were content to just sit at the back, and nobody else really thought it was worth some extra energy. And so about 2 laps to go, it was USA's Daniel Mikulski, who by no means should have been considered a favorite for this race. He's like, well, if no one else is going to go, I'm going. And he takes off, and it surprised everyone. It surprised them so much that initially no one even went with him. Like, they were just caught off guard. Oh, is actually someone going to run hard today? I don't even know what to think about that. But it actually kind of worked, because he had a little bit of a gap, and then everyone else had to start trying to respond to him. And so with a lap to go, he was still in it. Mikulski is just at that point, with a lap to go, being passed by the race favorites, Lemaitre Girma of Ethiopia and Soufiane El Bakkali, the king of steeple. They're going around him, but they're not gapping him. Like, he's holding on. And I'm starting to think, Mikulski, you dog, you knew what you were doing. That was great. Well, here's the problem. In a slow race, in the men's steeplechase, you have to worry about the best kickers. And Soufiane El Bakkali outkicks pretty much everyone in the steeplechase. But he is not the best kicker. Because anyone who's been paying attention knows that New Zealand's Gordy Beamish might be one of the best kickers on the planet. Yeah. Period. And he's good at jumping stuff. And so
he was the 1,500-meter indoor world champion.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So with 200 meters to go, El Bakkali, Girma, and Mikulski are riding high as they're flying down. But Gordy Beamish is just getting started. And he starts winding up. With 100 meters to go, it's still El Bakkali's race. He's taking the lead. He's going. But Gordy Beamish is still only just accelerating. And when he hit top speed, he basically passed El Bakkali like El Bakkali was a rookie. Just flew by him. Took the gold medal.
I mean, not for long. It was right,
at the
there.
Finish.
It was right at the finish.
I'm just saying he was moving so fast.
He was moving really fast. And he moved so fast that it was like sneaky to even see that he was in the game for a bit, because he had to pass so many people on that final 100.
So here's the drama for you. Beamish almost didn't even make the final.
Yeah.
Because he fell in the prelim, and it was not a terrible fall. He took a roll on the track, but he was even stepped on. The best track photo, the most dramatic track photo that I have seen in a long time, is this race. Gordy Beamish is on the ground on his back, and you can see the Canadian's foot coming down on his face. He was stepped on the face. I'm
laughing because it's so horrible. I'm not laughing because it's funny. It's just like, oh my word, how can this happen?
So they step on his face. He got up, and now you do two things in that situation. Either you work hard to just finish the race and hope they'll pass you through, because they often do in that situation, or you do what Gordy Beamish did, and you don't leave anything up to chance. And he ended up catching back up to the group and still made the final in the regular fashion, and then goes on to win the race just to spite the world. I love it. Well done, Gordy Beamish. What a run.
It was an amazing
Take
run.
that title for the Kiwis. It's a good thing. Relegated El Bakkali to second, which is his first world championship or first global championship defeat in a decade or more. I can't recall exactly. No, not quite a decade. And left El Bakkali
He was
in tears.
so sad. He was
tears.
like punching his own face and crying. It was really hard to see.
It was, but you know, he wanted it. Teenager out of Kenya, Edmund Serum, finished third, and everyone's saying he's the next great steeplechaser. We'll see. So next up then on the docket was the women's 1,500 meters. How'd you feel about that one?
I love the 1,500 meter run, so I wasn't like expecting any kind of craziness, really,
when
because
Faith Kipyegon
is up. She's ready. She's looking good. So I thought it was really just a race for second.
Which everyone else also thought that. That's everyone in the field. That's kind of just the mindset. If Faith is in the race, we're running for second place.
And it was a fast race, so it did not follow the trends of the previous races, which were more conservative. It went out fast.
Well, why did it? Because Kipyegon didn't want it to be slow.
I thought that was interesting because that's not her norm. I feel that she often lets other people at least start the race.
Usually, yeah, that's true. Usually, she often takes over around halfway, which is particularly unique. But at the same time, Faith Kipyegon can win any race in any way.
Right.
And so in a race where people are reluctant to lead and they're not going to go out very quickly, it may just behoove her to just go and go hard.
And be out of trouble.
Yeah, well, and because Faith Kipyegon running a world-class time in the 1,500 is just a good, strong effort, where everyone else is at like a dead sprint, and they're doing their very most. Faith Kipyegon is not even close to her potential. And so, yeah, it makes sense for her to do something like that. What also makes sense is the one person who is always willing to try to beat her.
Jessica Hall.
Jessica Hall, Australia's
Stuck to her.
Jessica Hall. If it's predictable to suggest that Faith Kipyegon was going to win this race, it's just as predictable to suggest that Jessica Hall is going to try to beat her, no matter what, even if she's going hard and fast. And Jessica Hall has tried to run with her in world record attempts in the past. Like, she will do anything, and it always pays off. That's the other part. So to date, it has paid off every single time, which is just amazing. So with a lap to go, Faith Kipyegon's just still gunning, and no one's going to be able to catch her. No one's going to be able to keep up with her. She's not that far ahead, but she's faster than everybody. But Hall was right there to keep her company.
Sticking her like glue.
Yeah, not just with a lap to go. 200 to go. Hall's still right there keeping her company. However, the one unpredictable factor in the race was Kenya's Dorcas Ewoy, who had one of the slower personal best times of the top tier runners in this race. And yet, when it matters most, surprising the field when she surpassed Hull in the last 100 meters, basically just before 100 meters to go, took the silver away. Kipyegon for the gold. She was already signing autographs downtown by the time everyone else finished. And Hull still managed to hang on yet for another global medal, though, finishing in the bronze. Not bad, right? Now, we should note there was a lot of talk of USA's Nikki Hiltz with medal potential. And Hiltz was not far out of reach in 5th place. It was a very impressive result. But those 2 seconds separating Hiltz and Hull is a long time.
Yeah.
That's a big gap.
Right. There just wasn't more people filling the gap. Yeah. But
So,
a good showing.
good
5th
showing.
place for Hiltz.
Yeah, right on. Women's steeplechase. In our penultimate event that we're covering right now, we want to talk about the women's steeple because it was a really interesting run.
I thought it was really interesting. I thought that there were quite a few contenders, and I wasn't sure who would be the one to take it. I mean, we had Faith Chirodich, we had Yavi, we had
Faith Chirodich, who's almost undefeated this season. Winfred Yavi, who's won the last 2 global titles. Perth Chemutai, who's like the 3rd fastest all time, and yet really struggles to win lately against these others.
Nora
Gerudo, who's a 2022 world champion. So how about a field like that, right? Well, something we've noticed is Perth Chemutai likes fast races. And I don't know if that's because she's not as great of a kicker as others. She does tend to lose in the kick. But she wins medals still. So Perth Chemutai takes it out fast. And it, right from the gun, was 2 races. There were 2 races happening. There were the top 6 women or so, and there was everybody else. And it was like blazing quick. So as I said at the outset, the women were running faster than the men for the first half of the race. And that was because of Chemutai, who really wanted to go. But then an unexpected result happened. So Perth Chemutai jumps really strangely. And I have often watched her.
You said it during the
Yes.
the prelims.
Yes. Yep. I have often watched her hurdling and think that is a flaw. And it is way too likely to cause catastrophe. Because what she does is she jumps over the hurdle with both of her legs on the same side of her body. Like they both go the same direction. And her feet almost hit together every single time she jumps. And I watch that happen, and I think it just spells the potential for disaster. And lo and behold, about halfway through the race, one of her feet hits the top of the barrier as it bounces off her other foot. And she stumbles a bit. I'm like, ooh, that was dangerous. And she lost some of her momentum. She was still with the lead pack, though, right on the tail end of it. And so, okay, she could salvage that. And on the very next jump, it happens again. And she goes down hard, hits the track, and she's out. She's done. And I really think it would be good if she could work on that hurdle form. But
Sad to see her out, though, because she did so much of the early work.
she did, and she just set the tone because then it became Faith Chirodich and Winfred Yavi duking it out head-to-head, which they have done a number of times this season. And Chirodich has gotten the better of Yavi, which just tells you Yavi is not unbeatable. And so as they go, with 200 meters to go, it looks like Yavi's doing her classic thing where she takes off and she's going to punish everyone with her savage kick. But Chirodich keeps her close, and with 100 meters to go, it's Yavi who's struggling and Chirodich who unleashes everything.
Oh, we forgot to talk about Amayu.
Well, that's because she was just hanging on the whole time.
Sembo Elmayu was
Yes.
the bronze and is also a decorated steeplechase runner.
In fact, yep. And so Almayu of Ethiopia earns the bronze. Cheretich wins the gold over Yavi, unseating the queen, as it were, in, did they say it was a championship record time? It was 8:52.
It was really
Crazy
fast.
fast time.
Yeah.
Really unbelievable. I believe it was championship record. All right, final event for our coverage today is the men's 1,500 meters. And
I was actually so sad because I was thrilled about this race. And then a lot of the characters I like to watch were not in it. And that made me sad.
so starting with, U.S. championships was just weird, and a whole bunch of the
Yard Nagoo,
favorite
Hobbs
medal
Kessler.
favorites, right? They're just not in it. So then Cole Hocker shows up in the semifinal, and he's like the last hope for the Americans, essentially. No, Jonah Koech was in the race too. But Hocker's like everyone, the Olympic champ, everyone's kind of watching him to see what he's going to do. And in the semifinal, he does his classic thing where he stays on the inside through the last 200 meters, which everyone always says, that's too risky. And he always says, yeah, well, I'm smarter than you. And then that space that usually opens up because people always drift out when they shouldn't in the last 100 did not happen.
Didn't open up
So
for him.
Hocker's trapped and all the kicking's going on, but he has no space and he's stuck far back. So he kind of makes his own space and gives an elbow to Germany's Robert Farken.
He wasn't jabbing elbows, but he
No,
was
he
trying
put
to
his arm
fit
in front of
into
him and pushed him over to the side, which you cannot do.
No.
That's not allowed. And so Hocker gets the DQ, and he's out. Doesn't even make it to final.
So sad.
Farken gets let back in because he was impeded, and Farken ends up finishing 6th in the final. So good thing they let him back in because he definitely deserved that. But Hocker, don't do that. Don't run the inside.
He knows. He did not try to be defensive about it. He knows.
Just doing the way he said it was.
Lose either way.
The way he said it was, I was doing whatever I could to get to the finish. And I was like, yeah, except you broke the rules.
But Farken actually, didn't he say in an interview, according to Let's
No,
Run,
he amended that later.
Oh, he did. Okay.
Initially, after the race, like right away, he was like, it didn't really matter because I was going backward anyway. But then later on, he was like, well, I say that, but in the same token, I don't know which happened first, the shove or me going backwards.
Well, I
so.
bet that was his agent telling him to say
Maybe, but it doesn't really matter. He clearly had the goods because he finished 6th in the final.
Yeah.
So.
Well, let's get on to the final.
Okay, here we go. Defending champ Josh Kerr, halfway through the race, suddenly pulls up with like a torn Achilles or something. We still don't know exactly what happened.
It looked bad, though.
It looked bad. Like he just immediately started limping. He still finished the race, by the way, which we're not quite sure why, because he was clearly causing himself
Probably contractual thing.
I don't know. Who knows? But that was crazy. So that's just a shocker, a sudden change to expectations. But Andy has been all season commenting about how Jake Whiteman.
When I saw him lining up and I saw him in the semi, I was like, hey, he's looking strong. Like he could be dangerous in this situation.
2022 world champion who has had a hard go between injuries and otherwise since then. But he's back in form. And with a lap to go, Andy was like, he's looking good. And I kept saying, yeah, but is he really going to have it, though, when the kicking starts? But he did. But here's what's crazy. Niels Laros, who is probably the race favorite at this point in time, based on how he's been running lately, just didn't have it, which seemed strange until later on we found out it's possible he actually has an injury that has suddenly come up. And so it could have been plaguing him in that moment. But Niels Laros is out. He's not there. But who's going to chase down Jake Whiteman? Because with 100 meters to go, Whiteman is looking like his 2022 self. He's storming down that straight. He's got the line. No one's able to keep up with him. They're holding, but they're not passing him until Portugal's Isaac Nader, out of nowhere in the far outside. He was like coming in from another country. And he steals the finish right on the line. I love it. These close finishes have been so exciting. Takes the race. Nader, first world title for Portugal in the event. And very impressive finish. Whiteman finishes silver. His comeback tour definitely is legit.
It's here.
Yep. And it was Reynold Chariot for bronze, who's been looking like a king all season. He's been incredibly...
That was Zach's pick.
I thought he was going to be the dark horse because he's been looking great all season. He won the Kenyan champs. He's clearly in great shape. But what impressed me the most was actually Timothy Chariot, who was right behind him in fourth. No relation, by the way. Timothy Chariot, who is the 2019 world champion and coming back to great form, unfortunately just outside the medals. Finished fourth. All right.
That was good.
That was good. It was so exciting.
There's more stuff to come, too, so stay tuned.
There is. We've got the 5,000 and the 800s next time we're on with you, so that will be exciting, as well as the Berlin Marathon. We got a lot of fun things to report on when you hear from us again. But first, this is the AI Trivia segment, and Andy has something to say to Zach.
Oh, because Zach decided that we were going to have some sort of restitution and repercussion for being a loser.
He said, prize for the winner.
A prize for the winner. So I did come up with a prize.
Oh, look at that.
The bag says you won. Because that's the best prize for him of all, because he likes to win.
You're funny. You're funny. So here's what happens. We're going to play trivia, and there's a maximum of 2 or 3 points available every time we play, and the first one to 10 points wins, and then we'll reset the points and start a new round. And the loser has to buy the winner some kind of running item. Right? Is that the way we had phrased it?
Yep.
Okay, so here it is. I am opening in real time the running item. Oh, my goodness. What does that say? Are those socks?
Yes.
So I have some socks. They're the Gone for a Run socks, for those of you who are familiar with this kind of stuff. They're goofy, always goofy socks. Oh my. It says, does that say gobble? Run.
So Zach said he didn't have anything on his calendar prior to his marathon in December, and I am deciding for him that he's doing a turkey trot.
Oh, I can't do that. But I am now equipped to do it, if I did, with themed socks, because I have turkey themed socks that Andy got me, which are really hard to open because they're vacuum packed. But they say run now, gobble
here they
after, later. Run now, gobble later.
I think they're really fun.
Wow. Yeah, they are indeed. So I will have to apparently wear these in some kind of race. If you're watching the video, you can see the gobbler, and they're striped with bright colors, which is the way socks are supposed to be. So great. Is that why you asked me what my sock size was? No, I'm kidding. You didn't do that.
I didn't.
Hopefully they fit. I'm kidding.
Hope so too.
I wear
Your
the
size large?
same size I've always worn. All right. Well, thank you, Andy. So that's your restitution. Now we get to continue play, and we're just gonna do. We're not gonna do a full round here for the sake of time and for our audience's sake, but we do want to get a chance to earn a point. Currently, we are tied 2-2.
We are.
So what we thought was, let's take a quick question from the AI around World Championships history, and we're going to do 2 questions. I'm deciding right now. One about the 5,000 and one about the 800.
Oh,
because those are the 2 events that are left. And so we'll see if we can get the AI to give us a better question this time. Remember last time when it was totally wrong about the whole entire thing? Okay, here we go. Hey, we are back on with the A to Z Running audience. We're going to do another trivia question game. And this time we're going to give you the topic of recent history in the World Athletics Championships 5,000 meter contest. You can decide whether it's male or female competition. And
before 2025.
Yeah, so before the year 2025, but after the year 2000. So sometime in the modern era. In the last 25 years, we want a trivia question about the World Athletics Championships 5,000 meters. That's on the track. And give us 4 possible correct answers when you do it.
Give us 1 correct answer.
Yeah, it knows that. It knows that. So give us 4 options to choose from. One of them is correct. Okay, go ahead.
Absolutely. That sounds like a fun challenge. All right, here's your question. In the men's 5,000 meter event at the World Athletics Championships, who won the gold medal in 2019? Here are your options. 1, Joshua Cheptegei. 2, Mukhtar Edris. 3, Paul Chelimo. 4, Solomon Barega. Go ahead and guess.
Okay. Give us those options one more time.
Of course. Here are your options again. 1, Joshua Cheptegei. 2, Mukhtar Edris. 3, Paul Chelimo. 4, Selaman Barega. Take your time and pick whichever one you think is correct.
This is the men's 5,000 meters from 2019. I have my guess.
too. Let's
3, 2,
go.
1, go. What did you guess? Who was that?
I guessed
I guess
Joshua
Mukhtar.
Cheptegei.
Oh, okay. I guess Mukhtar Idris. Okay, our guess is either Joshua Cheptegei or Mukhtar Idris. Who was it?
Well, nice guesses from both of you. The correct answer is actually Mukhtar Edris. He took the gold in the 2019 World Championships. 5,000 meters, though. Congrats if you picked him.
Did Joshua Cheptegei win?
He won the 10,000.
10,000,
but
okay.
not that year, I don't think. Okay, now we're going to ask you for one more question. And this time, the same conditions, World Athletics Championships in the last 25 years, recent history, but we want it to be about the 800 meters competition. So something from the World Athletics Championships in the 800 meters. Go ahead.
Absolutely. Let's switch gears to the 800 meters. Here's your question. In the women's 800 meters at the 2017 World Championships, who took home the gold medal? Here are your options. 1, Caster Semenya. 2, Ajay Wilson. 3, Francine Niyonsaba. 4, Margaret Wamdui. Take your pick.
Oh, man, that's so tricky. 2017 was so long ago. Okay, I have my guess. Do you have your guess?
Yes.
Okay, 3, 2, 1, go. Oh,
Caster
Caster Semenya.
Semenya.
Okay, we think it was Caster Semenya.
And you both nailed it. The correct answer is indeed Caster Semenya. She won the women's 800 meters at the 2017 World Championships.
There we go. Thank you so much. Say goodbye to the audience.
You're so welcome. It's always a blast. Thanks everyone for joining in, and I'll catch you next time. Take care.
All right, so
You're
that was,
2 for 2 tonight.
I am on track. I'm 100%
Wow.
right now. Oh, no, we did 3 last time,
Yeah,
and I
we did
only got 2
3.
right. So now the score is 3-4. I'm on fire.
No,
I'm
you
on
just want
fire.
another present.
I do. I love it. I like to win. Okay, that was pretty exciting. Now, if you're playing along, you got to let us know your score. You got to keep track of your score, because if you're beating us to 10 points, we might have to do something about that for you. But you have to tell us, and don't lie. Be honest. Okay. We've got a lot more to talk about next time we're with you, including the conclusion of the World Championships and the Berlin Marathon, as well as some new helpful topics to keep your running endeavors high and mighty.
Thank you all so much for joining us, and we'll talk to you next time.